What's up guys, Speed here, and today I'm very excited because I don't really do this a lot where I talk about item builds, but I know there's a lot of people requesting in the comments and always bringing it up like, Speed, you know, how do I know how to buy certain items on certain heroes? So I'm going to be starting this series today. This will obviously go on for a long time, maybe years, who knows, if Dota doesn't die in 2 years, this series will still be going on. But no joke, what I'm going to be doing here is looking at 3 RIKI games. They're all miracle replays, and throughout the games, he goes a different item build each and every game. At a certain point, of course. So I'm going to be discussing what you need to do to think about your item build, what are the factors that influence your item build, and how to customize it so that you have the optimal build every single game. And you can apply all the information that I'm going to be teaching about RIKI to other heroes as well, right? Because I'm going to give you the basis of how a 7K player thinks about buying items. And so yeah, if you guys are excited for this new series and you want to see more of it in the future, I would really appreciate a like. If we could get this video to 420 likes to commemorate RIKI's smoke cloud, I would appreciate that a ton. So yeah, let's get into the video, and please click the like button and subscribe right now. On top of that, if you want to learn more about item builds and the reason why people buy certain items, I do full-length replay analysis, like 20-30 minute replay analysis on the gameleap website consistently now. I'm doing that all the time. And of course, during those 30 minutes, I'm very often going to be talking about item builds because I just have a lot more time. I don't have to niche the video as much, so it's much more general. And yeah, therefore, if you want to learn more about item builds in advanced Dota, right, just get a full breadth of all my knowledge, then I recommend you sign up to the gameleap website right now and get your discount. It's a 25% discount for your first month if you click the link down below right now, and I hope to see you guys there if you enjoy the content I make here on YouTube. Getting into the first replay, we're going to see a game where Miracle pops off in the laning stage. He has 45 last hits and 3 kills by the 8-minute mark. And let's look at his team comp very quickly so we can understand why he's going to buy the items that he does. So if we look at his team comp, they don't scale particularly well. If the game goes late, I would argue they almost have a 100% chance to lose against the likes of a Nature's Prophet and a Luna. And therefore, he goes a very strong fighting item build to start off the match. He has 2 Wraith Bands, a 1, and queues up a Treads, which is coming on the courier right now. And I want to ask you guys, what is he going to do exactly with these items? Hopefully a lot of you could guess it, but as he gets his Treads, he actually gives up free farm bottom to fight. And this is really how high MMR players think about items. You know what I mean? You do your best to synergize your items with your playstyle. If you want to farm, well, you can buy farming items. Maybe you go Treads, Wraith Bands into a Battle Fury this game. But in this game, he wants to fight. So he TPs mid with his Treads, and this is my favorite thing about this match. Even if he was to be going Battle Fury, I'd be like, okay, but I would expect him to stay bottom here. Moving on, you're really going to see a high MMR adjustment with the item build in terms of, you know, how he plays and why it's useful. I would also like to say that Magic Wand is one of the best fighting items in Dota, if not the best. Giga heals plus good stats basically lets you fight with this item better than any other item. So please, if you were playing Ember Spirit, or Terrorblade, or RIKI, and you plan to fight, I don't care, but if you plan to fight, buy a Magic Wand. And now you're going to see with this item build come into play, who is the main issue of the enemy team? Who's the hero that's going to carry and scale? It's the Luna. So what does Miracle do? He goes and kicks her out of the top lane. A very effective play to prevent them from making... he's spam picking. But to prevent the enemy team from scaling to the best of their ability. Alright, now to end up game 1 of this 3-game video, we're going to see that he goes Yasha into BKB. Now this is the biggest adjustment you'll see because you have a lot of options on RIKI at this point in the game. You have the option to go Basher, you have the option to go Manta, Sanjin Yasha, Battle Fury. So why does he go Yasha into BKB? Now the Yasha is something he buys every single game. Miracle personally feels that RIKI is played best in the mid game with his defusal timing with the Yasha. It gives you a lot of attack speed, movement speed, and makes you hard to catch, which is basically what RIKI does. But why the BKB? Well, if we look at the enemy team, they have a lot of burst magical damage. Specifically burst magical damage, because if they had sustained magical damage of the likes of, let's say, a Phoenix, which we'll see later on into the video, maybe something like a Sanjin Yasha, which gives him more long-term sustain, is better. But if we look at the enemy team, they can lift into Mars Arena, into Ice Path, into Macropyre, into Lucent Beam, and Miracle might get bursted. So buying a BKB this game seems very logical. Now, of course, the game ends very quickly, but nonetheless, that's the reasoning behind it, and hopefully you guys learned something there. Alright, now let's get into game 2. Starting items are about the same, so nothing crazy there. However, I would like to say that he bought a magical stick against Bristleback. I don't feel like I have to explain this. Honestly, like, I feel, no joke, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I actually think, like, the first thing everyone learns about Dota is that you buy a magic stick against Bristle. I don't know why, but, like, who doesn't know that? You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't know that? Also would like to stress that once again, he picks up 2 Wraith Bands and a magic wand. Really what I want you guys to understand about Riki is that he's itemizing around the fact that Riki isn't a good early game fighter. A lot of people will rush Diffusal Blade, but this prevents you from enabling Riki in the way that the hero, in my opinion, is meant to be played, which is a high tempo carry that can dominate the first 15 minutes into the game, especially if you get off to a good start. Now, as you can see this game, he's 1-2 with 45 CS, so he can't put as much pressure, but you still can do fine. So keep that in mind, guys. If you're playing Riki, stop rushing big items and buy small ones if you actually want to shut down the enemy team like your hero can. And I really would like to stress with this small clip here the importance of these small items. He goes in, does quite a bit more damage than he usually would with other items, because obviously he has significantly more stats than the average Riki item build, and then he's able to get off his ulti, right? He was able to be saved by the Oracle, because he's significantly tankier, can disengage out to the side, pop his magic wand, sustain through the fight, and do significantly more damage. Unfortunately, he ends up going down, but obviously, it's not a perfect numbers game. Dota is not an exact science. He almost ended up living because of this item build, and then the whole game would look different, right? It was close anyway, and they were able to bait out the Shaman and the Bloodseeker because of his stat build, and so yeah, hopefully you guys see what I'm saying there. So the next item he ends up purchasing in this game is Sanjin Yasha. Well, what would be the reason for that? The enemy team doesn't have burst damage, right? They don't. They have a Bristleback, who doesn't really burst heroes. He can burst low armor heroes, right, like a Rubik, but he can't really burst a Riki. Same thing with Bloodseeker. You know, sure, he can silence and rupture, but this isn't really something you would need BKB for. It's very easy to dodge Bloodright, and rupture is, you know, it's a problem, but BKB does nothing against it. On top of that, Void Spirit doesn't do burst damage. To be fair, BKB would be good against the Aghanim Scepter, and so would Manta, but I think how a Miracle is looking at this game is he's saying, I have to be the frontliner. Guys, why does he have to be the frontliner? Look at his team. Who is gonna frontline? You could say, okay, Nature's Prophet. Which is fair, he won Blade Mill and a mech, but at the end of the day, is that really going to be enough frontlining to keep the Oracle Rubik plus TA alive, right, to take the pressure away from them? Absolutely not. So yeah, he goes Sanjin Yasha so he can fulfill this role that his team needs, which is a frontlining version of Riki. If he goes Battle Fury or something like that, his team is going to be doomed. He can't frontline for them. But because he goes this item build, he can get on top of the Shaman, the Phoenix, and slowly kite out the other cores. And you can sort of see how this plays out in this small snippet fight here. Because of his item build and his stats, he just straight up walks up to the Phoenix Egg and punches it, right? Then he gets gone on by the Void Spirit and doesn't really care about all the damage. He can easily sustain through it with no cares in the world, and this is why buying items like this on Riki completely changes the way you can play the game. And once again, I would like to point out his last item build and say the reason he's buying it is the same reason I mentioned the Sanjin Yasha. His goal this game is to frontline and tank all the damage. He doesn't have to burst anyone, he just has to sustain the damage. His team has very sustained damage. TA does not run out of damage. Nature's Prophet does not run out of damage. Rubik does not run. You guys see where I'm going with this? They don't run out of damage, so he doesn't have to burst anyone here. I would argue there's not even like a target he has to burst. He can kill Shaman without a Basher. He can't really kill Phoenix even with the Basher because of the Halberd, right? It's probably not going to happen. And therefore, I just like this item build where he's going to play this version that soaks damage. And guys, understand that tanking damage is doing damage. I hate that people don't get this. They like go like, Deso Ags Butterfly, and they're like, I'm one-shotting them, it's fine. And then their entire team dies, and they're like, why is that happening? Maybe it's because you aren't protecting them to a large extent. And now let's get into one final game where he decides to go Manta style. One more thing I would really like to mention is that even though this is going to be a slower paced game, right? I'm going to show you a bit of why I'm saying that in a second. He does not really show up to any major fights beside lane brawls for the first 15 minutes, and yet he still has a magic wand. Guys, keep in mind that this item synergizes with Riki, and I'm only saying it again because I watch a lot of pro Dota and top tier Dota, and usually 8 or 9 heroes per game has a wand, while in lower MMR games, sometimes it's the case, but sometimes it's like 2 or 3 heroes, and I just get confused. Alright, so getting to the next stage of the game, I would argue if there's one game where he could go Battle Fury, it would potentially be this one. The enemy team scales like meh. The only issue about going Battle Fury this game is that the enemy team can play very quick, right? They have a very potentially fast-paced team comp. So if he goes Battle Fury, his team might get run over, right? Especially in a top tier game like this. If this is low MMR solo queue, and I'm just being real, guys, this is 2 to 3k, and the enemy team doesn't scale and you do, you can kind of just chill, like really chill, buy a battlefield and just scale, you know what I mean? Like split up the map, do what he's doing here, farm top when the enemy team is mid and bottom, and you're gonna scale. But in this game, you know, they're playing very high tempo. As I mentioned, the enemy team understands that they do not want to play late game. So he addresses that fact, once again, goes to stat-based build to deal with the aggression, picks up a Yasha, and now is gonna go into the Manta. So let's discuss why Manta's good this game. Number 1 is Chains. Do I have to say more? Not really, actually. Chains is one of the hardest counters to Riki in Dota. It gives you a way of catching a hero for a long duration of time, 3 seconds at max, and if Riki can't purge it, he can't use Blink Strike or Tricks of the Trade. So it creates a massive issue for the hero, right? I think Ember is pretty good against Riki in that regard. There are other reasons as well. You could argue the Tinker Laser, which is okay. Tinker Rockets, you technically can disjoint them, and Dust as well. And on top of that, you do have Blinding Light, which he's not maxing, but sure, it matters. I would also like to say that this game, you know, he doesn't have to be the frontliner. He more so has to be an assassin that has to look for side targets, right? He really does kind of have to just play around the edges of the fight while his Mars goes in the front. And I know this is gonna blow people's mind, but I just love this so much. I love this just to make people feel really sad about their item build. But you notice how he doesn't rush a Basher in any of these games? Is Basher a bad Riki item? No, absolutely not. It's good on the hero, and it's good this game. You're gonna see that he keys it up as his 4th item. But what is more important as Riki is your ability to disengage and re-engage over and over again, right? Even if you can't burst someone, you wanna make sure you can stay alive so that you can fight for 30 seconds instead of 15 because you got caught and couldn't disengage. Also, if we look at the enemy team, they're all magical damage. If he has a BKB, he takes 0 damage. He takes nothing. So it allows him to play like a psycho. If he has a BKB, he can hunt the Tinker on the backlines without worrying about getting controlled whatsoever. So after split pushing for a little bit more, which is something he does a lot more this game, as I said, his team is playing quite a bit slower than the other matches. It's less of a stop, so he slows down his pace of the game. He's able to take a fight with his BKB timing, and as I said, he uses this BKB timing to get on top of the Tinker, and his teammates can't help him, right? In that case, the Void Spirit could have shifted over, tried to go for an Aether Remnant to save the Tinker, but it's not an option, and this is really cool, right? He didn't need the Basher to kill the Tinker, he simply actually needed a BKB in this case. It's a really cool adjustment based off the team comps. And finally, he does buy the Basher. Yes, it's a good Basher game. Why? Because the enemy team is slippery, right? On top of that, Tinker bought a BKB, so it lets you kill Tinker in case he tries to BKB TP out. Sure, very useful, right? And that is generally why you buy Basher on Riki, but I really do recommend that you guys try to do what Miracle does, which is generally buy it later on. I watch a lot of Riki, people buy it early, and it doesn't make them very survivable. It gives a bit of health, but it's not nearly as good as Yasha and Sancho Yasha and Manta, as well as just an early BKB overall. So keep that in mind, but as I was saying, Basher very good this game. It helps him kill the Lich, right? Lich actually is pretty decent against Riki. He has a Ghost Scepter on top of that, but Frost Shield makes it very difficult for Lich to die to Riki if he sees you coming. Blinding Light is an issue. On top of that, another Ghost Scepter. Obviously, the enemy team understands how much Riki is of a threat to them. And so yeah, the Basher is going to help him deal with that. It's just a good adjustment to the Ghost Scepters. He could maybe go for a Nullifier, but I think his main concern is dealing with the potential Tinker BKB. And that's going to be all for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this different style. It's something I'm going to be trying out. You know, if it gets received well, I'll do it much more often. If it doesn't, I'll do it from time to time, as I know this is something that certain people are very curious about. So thank you guys for watching. Comment down below which hero you want me to do this for next. And I'll see you in the next one, baby. Like and subscribe. Before you leave, just want to say a quick message. If you're trying to get better at Dota or you just enjoyed that video, I know this is pretty general, and you're going to hear this quite a bit from me. But I recommend you sign up to gameleap.com. Why? Because I put a lot of effort into the content over there, and generally the effort I do there is different from the content you're going to see here on YouTube. It is different. In fact, I usually go a lot more in depth on topics or into niche topics that help you get to the next level even faster. Because on YouTube, I often have to keep it more mainstream, and that's even why I'm putting it at the end of this YouTube video. That's why this is at the end, because a lot of people just watch 5 minutes, they skip through just for like the dopamine spike. But if you are interested in actually getting better at Dota, I recommend you go to the description down below, get your discount right now by clicking the link, sign up, use the discount code that you're gonna see there, and I hope to see you there right now. So click it, and yeah, thanks for watching.